Hey guys, good morning. Welcome back to the channel. So it is New Year's Day, and I wanted to give you guys a 10,000 mile update video on the ownership experience of the 2020 Mini Cooper SE electric. This is a car that's based on the Mini Cooper S, and yet it is electric. That is what the SE stands for. Now, we purchased this car early June. It was just a couple days before the COVID shutdown, and admittedly, it was a little bit strange. Oh, and I'll get into this in a minute here. It's slick right here. The traction control is kicking in, so I'll cover that shortly as far as the winter driving experience. But when we picked this car up, we were I don't know that I'd say we were hesitant to pick it up, but we had ordered it online sometime before and put our deposit down. And then when the COVID shutdown hit, I was unsure what my business was going to do. But the fact of the matter is the $7,500 tax credit would save us more in taxes per month for that first year of ownership than the car costs us to own between payment and insurance. So it was actually in our financial best interest to go ahead with purchasing it. But when we first got it, we were nervous to drive it, partly because it just seemed like an unnecessary expense at a time when a lot of people were struggling. So, but after a few weeks, and it was clear that my business was going to be doing quite well, we decided that, you know what, it was a wise decision to make, and so we've been enjoying the car ever since. So we've had it from I believe it was March 4th, maybe? Anyway, early part of March, and now it is January 1st. And we put 10,313 miles on it so far. So what is my opinion of the car? Well, as I said in my 3,000 mile update video, oh, you know what? It is amazing to me how many SUVs end up in the ditch. And this is a slow moving road. Anyway, as I said back in that video, I am very pleased with the car, but there are a few things that have jumped out at me since owning it for that long. Number one, the honeymoon has worn off. The honeymoon as in, oh, it's just a new car and I'm so in love with it. That oftentimes can taint your view of a product because you're just overly excited to have it. So being that we've had it for a while now, we've put over 10,000 miles on it, that honeymoon phase has worn off. And so now I can just be more honest about it. So the things that I like, I absolutely love the driving dynamics. Love it, full stop. I mean, just anyone that's driven a Mini Cooper, especially a Cooper S, knows what I mean by that. Number two, the power. Now, my Tesla Model 3, my rear-wheel drive Tesla Model 3 is faster than this car and accelerates harder, but this is, I believe, the quickest Mini Cooper you can buy. The GP might accelerate quicker than this car, I don't know, but I tested it 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds, and yet from about 10 to probably 40 or 50, it pulls real hard, to the point where if you got it in sport mode and the traction control off, you're really at the limit of what the tires can deliver, and it has sticky performance summer tires on it. So so the power is really incredible. Smoothness, reliability, all of that, wonderful. The cargo space is really good on this thing. The floor of the trunk can be lifted, and then there's room underneath it. You can also adjust the height of the trunk floor with there's a couple different levels there. You can fold the seats all the way down, have them back for passengers, or you can have them perfectly vertical for putting square luggage behind the back seats to retain them in place. So very nice feature there. Overall, the car has been fantastic. My wife loves it. Now, what are the downsides? One of the main downsides is something that I'm dealing with right now in this drive video, and that is the tires. They give you sticky summer tires. Now, that's great for the summer, but here in the winter, not so much. Model 3, beautiful. Not so much these winter or summer tires in the winter. So we are going to get a set of winter tires for it. The second downside I hesitate to bring up And I'm going to bring it up not because it's a downside for us as a family, but because it would be a downside for many others, and that is the range. This car has an EPA estimated range of 110 miles. Now, we found that realistically that's more like 140 miles. In fact, in the winter, in the cold weather, that range is, I'd say, 105 to 115 miles in the winter. So, and everybody knows that EVs lose a lot of their range in the winter. So, again, summer, 140 miles of range. We got 170, a little over 170 on one charge, but 140 miles of range in the summer, 105 to 110 in the winter. And this car does have a heat pump, so that's awesome. A heat pump uses warm fluid from the motor and inverter heat and warms the cabin with it, so much more efficient than a normal resistive type heating element. So that helps with the range. And also, BMW Mini is very honest about the range with this car. A lot of electric cars, even Tesla included in this, they do tend to overestimate the range just a little bit, maybe for more sales or something, but that 110 mile range that this car is listed at is very realistic, you know, year round. In the winter, especially in the summer, you'll probably get better than that. Now, again, I mentioned that's a downside. Well, it's a downside for a lot of people because they're going to choose to not buy a car like this because of the range, and I get that, I really do. When we bought this car, I was very defensive of the short range is fine, it's not a problem. That's true for us. The short range is not a problem for us whatsoever, but it is, and it can be for many people. So so that is the range is something that to consider. Now, this car does have a CCS charge port, and that is really, really nice. CCS charge port gives you 2 additional high current ports that are DC voltage that go straight to the battery, and that is for rapid charging. So this car is rated to go from, I believe it is 10% to 80% in 20 some minutes. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section below, but very rapidly, less than a half hour anyway. So you could essentially drive, say, 70, 80 miles in this car, plug in for a half hour, drive 70, 80 miles, plug in for a half hour at a rapid charger, and you could travel with it. I know that Out of Spec Motoring took this car, the same, not my car, but took their Mini Cooper SE for a 500 mile road trip. I think it was 500 miles each way, if I'm remembering correctly, and they stopped at CCS chargers along the way. So you can do that, although admittedly the range is short enough that you'd be stopping so frequently that that would be a little bit annoying. Ideally, I would say probably 40 more miles of range, so 150 miles in the winter, 200 miles in the summer would make this car, if you could do that with no more money and no more weight in the car, that would make this car essentially perfect. Now, again, for us, range, no problem, but I think for the market as a whole, that would be a good selling point. And I want to make a comment about just overall this car. I think that the Mini Cooper SE is probably the best kept EV secret in the world today, really. And what I mean by that is the amount that you get for the money. So this particular car is the Signature Plus trim. It's the middle trim level. The Signature is the base level, and then the Iconic is the top trim. This car was, I think, $33,900, but the standard Signature trim, which has no sunroof, I think it doesn't have GPS, more basic sound system, has I think just vinyl seats. These are a vinyl and tweed combination. I believe those are the main differences, but the Signature trim is $29,900, and here in the US there's a $7,500 federal tax credit that brings it down to the low 20,000s, and many states have a few $1,000 tax credit beyond that, which would put it under $20,000. And the performance of all trim levels is the same. So you have the same 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds, the same suspension, the same overall, the same chassis, Everything is the same. It's just fewer bells and whistles on the interior and that kind of thing. So this is probably, again, the best kept secret in the EV market is this car. Most people like Mini Coopers, but a lot of people realize that they are somewhat, inherently unreliable. But purchasing an EV kind of eliminates that, because with Mini Coopers, the reliability issues are primarily tied to the drivetrain, the engine and transmission. They're very unreliable and extremely difficult to work on. It's so packed up front. This car has none of that. Number one, EV propulsion systems are very, very reliable. You just basically really don't ever have problems with the propulsion system, battery, inverter, motor, drivetrain. And even if you did, there is much more room under the hood on this car than there is in a gas engined Mini Cooper. So in fact, I've had the nose section off of this car to modify the nose, and I took off the stock Mini Cooper SE grille that I didn't like, and I put a gas Mini Cooper grille on it, but then blocked it off on the inside just to give it a nicer look. And when I had the nose section off of this car, it's very easy to work on. If there were problems with this car, the labor would be easy. So any concerns that people have with purchasing a Mini Cooper product, I think really is not a consideration with this car. So I would say also, are there any rattles and squeaks? No, nothing is developed over 10,000 miles. My wife has acclimated to charging this car. Oh, my 17-year-old son is in love with this car. Absolutely in love with it. He announced to us the other day that if we ever want to sell it, he'll take it. I mean, he's like, that car is so awesome. I mean, he's enamored with it, which says a lot, really. And you would think that young people, any new car they would be thrilled with. Not so much with my son. He has a smart electric drive that we bought for him to run his errands, go to work with, and he likes it. In fact, part of the reason we purchased that car is it was sort of his choice. But this is obviously a far better car than the smart electric drive. It's got double the range, and it's a nicer car. And it's interesting, like, he doesn't, even though he likes Tesla stuff, he said the Model 3 feels too big to him. He doesn't really like just the one screen on the dash and that. So he does have an opinion. It's not just if something is more expensive, he wants it more. So that really spoke volumes to me about this car, that he loves it so much. It's easy for him to drive. And he and my wife have gotten used to using EVs between owning this car and the smart electric drive, to the point that it's really a no-brainer. Everyone kind of knows what the state of charge is for each car that they're the ones going to be driving that day, and it's not a problem for each of us to go outside, plug the cars in, and we have one charging cord, and we charge all 3 electric cars with it. My car charges overnight, and when I get up in the morning and leave for work, I'll typically plug in the Mini Cooper, and within a couple hours it's topped off, and my wife goes and runs her errands. And then my son, with the smart electric drive, he doesn't drive very often, so he knows, oh, today's my day to drive. He'll run outside and plug his car in. So it's never been an issue having one cord with 3 cars. So this has been a wonderful addition to our family. Now, would I own this as my only car? I would say yes, with the proviso that if I knew I was going to be traveling out of state, I would just go ahead and probably rent or borrow a car, because again, the range, even though you can use rapid chargers, the range is short enough that I'd be stopping too frequently to charge it. That would be, I think, a pain. But aside from state-to-state driving, this would make a wonderful only car for somebody. And so that's my take on it after 10,000 miles. Do we have any thoughts to get rid of or trade this car in? Absolutely not. I would say the only exception to that would be if Mini Cooper releases this car as a convertible. We would instantly order it, no questions asked. I would put my deposit down, and then we would trade this car in on it, or potentially sell it to a family member. But other than that, this will be a car in the family for the long term. We've considered getting my wife potentially a Mach-E, a Ford Mach-E, probably the GT version. If that happened, we would probably then sell off the Smart Electric Drive, and this car would be used. It wouldn't be owned by my son, but it would be used by him as his daily driver. But that's a discussion for another time. The Mach-E GT won't be out until summer, and by then, you know, I have to decide what's going to happen with the Roadster we have coming. So those are my thoughts for the day. A lot of rambling, but yeah, I am so pleased with this car. I can't say enough good about it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below. And as always, stay charged. Thanks, guys. Take it easy now. Bye-bye.